Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mind Matters, empowering conversations for public safety professionals, where we'll discuss topics involving wellness and first responders. Join me on this journey of learning from subject matter experts in their various fields of psychology, medicine, leadership, and many more. You can find our show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Let's get into the show. I'm your host, Elizabeth Morris. Good morning. Welcome to Mind Matters, empowering conversations with public safety professionals. I'm Elizabeth Morris, joined by my co-host, Gary Fly. Today, we're recording during First Responder Suicide Awareness Week, which is an important reminder of the challenges faced by those who serve and protect. Our guest, Doug Monda, knows those challenges firsthand. So Doug is a retired narcotics agent and former SWAT operator with Cocoa Police Department in Florida. He has built a distinguished tactical career, but behind the badge, he fought personal battles that nearly cost him his life. So today, Doug is the founder and president of Survive First, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting first responders and their families. He is also co-founded Trauma Behind the Badge and serves in leadership roles with the Florida Police Chiefs Association and Lynn University. His journey from crisis to advocacy is both powerful and inspiring. So, Doug, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So go ahead. Well, and of course, my wonderful co-host, Gary Fly, is with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with everybody this morning.
So, Doug, let's start with your story. You had a long and decorated law enforcement career, but at the same time, you faced devastating injuries and depression that ultimately led to a suicide attempt in 2013. Tell us about that story.
Well, that's hard to break that story into pieces. So in my career, probably about 13 years in, I had been struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety and depression from a multitude of things that I were involved in the first 13 years of my career. I wasn't aware of what was going on. I'm a little bit older than, I'm an old school cop, as some might, consider. I've been doing it a long time. And, I come from that era of suck it up and rub dirt on it. And so I say we as in my department and the people that I worked in and around, we just really weren't aware of it. It wasn't something that we talked about, not negative towards anybody. It was just that era and lack of information and training. And about 2000, I was run over by an 11-year-old kid on the job. And when he hit me with the vehicle, I sustained several injuries, which ultimately the main one was I broke my back. And at the time that happened, I was really involved in Ironman triathlon. I had been a triathlete for a long time. I'm a former professional soccer player turned triathlete. I hold a couple of titles, a national championship. I hold a world championship. And the reason I say all that is that was my life. That was what brought me joy. I use that term a lot. It brought me a lot of joy and a lot of happiness. And that was kind of how I got rid of the pain and the misery of the job and the things that I saw. And that's a whole nother story in itself. I really wasn't the average police officer. I wasn't writing tickets. I wasn't getting cats out of trees. I was working high crime, things like that. I thought I was going to be getting cats out of trees and writing tickets, but apparently that's the firefighters and the motorcycle cops. So,
Right, you chose the wrong career. You should have gone into with the fire folks.
no, I don't like putting out fires. I love those guys, but they're crazy. I mean, they run into buildings that are on fire.
I think we say the same thing about you. We just had a region meeting and some of our fire and law enforcement folks, and y'all love to mess with each other. That's for sure.
We do. That's just love in the industry. I live in central Florida on the East Coast, and we're really close with our firefighters in Florida. We all get along, and yeah, they think we're crazy, and we think they're crazy. But anyway, I was involved in some pretty heavy things and saw some tragic things that I wasn't prepared for, and they haunted me for years. Being a SWAT operator, I was a very busy SWAT operator, 2 to 4 times a week we were getting used. I was a
Wow.
sniper on that team for pretty much most of my career. So as you know, as a sniper, just the mindset of that position, let alone what I did, the mindset is pretty taxing. So I say all that to say this: when I broke my back, I went from being a 100-mile-an-hour guy, training every day, competing every weekend, working every week, and I had a family. I had kids. I had 5 kids at the time, and yeah, I got a whole basketball team of kids
Yeah,
somewhere in there,
a lot.
and yeah, that's what most people they either ask me if I'm a Mormon and or they ask me if being here in Florida, and they ask me if I play basketball, and I always laugh and say neither of the 2. I just had ended up with some twins in there. I messed up the ride rotation. But, that's what I always tell them. Living by Disney, you can't have, uneven numbers. So that all that when I broke my back and went home, I say, and sat on a couch for a year waiting for
Yeah.
them to fix me. I mean, I had bone fragment in my spinal cord. I couldn't feel my left leg, and it took work comp and the whole system a year to fix me. And I just sat there. And what I learned in that moment was when I sat still, I had all day long to think about all the horrible things that I saw and that I was involved in. And it just wore me out mentally and physically. So the mental pain and the physical pain. And I use the analogy of September 11th pain. Most people remember the people jumping out of the building, jumping out of the windows because of the pain that they were incurring from the heat coming up. And because people ask me why I did it all the time. I'm one of the very few cops that have put a gun to their head, pulled the trigger, and I'm still here. And they ask me why I did that, and I tell them September 11th pain. That's how much pain I was in physically and mentally, that in my mind at that time, the only thing I could do to escape this pain was to jump out the window. And I didn't have a window to jump out of, so I chose my gun. And by the grace of God, I'm still here. And when I recovered from that, between the medical and the mental part of that recovery, I realized that I wasn't the only one. My entire team was struggling. My SWAT team, they were always with me. So whatever I saw, they saw. My partners, being a drug agent. So I realized I wasn't the only one, and something was broken in the system, and that something needed to be done. And so I went to some really good friends of mine who were police chiefs, and they were FBI National Academy guys who I have a bunch of respect for. They're highly educated and well trained, and everybody thinks I'm part of the NA because I work with them, but I'm
Yeah.
not. I always joke and say they wouldn't even let me cut the grass at the NA, but they let me teach for them, and they've given me a place and a purpose.
Well, yeah, you've turned that pain into purpose. I was gonna ask you what the turning point was that made you realize you needed help, but again, like you said, by the grace of God, you are still here today because you are turning that pain into a phenomenal mission. And then I think it sounds like, I mean, that you saw that the system was broken, and then that encouraged you, that gave you the drive that you needed to remain. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it did, and I would say I'm lucky being an athlete my whole life. I had that gene in me where I've always wanted to improve myself. When competing at the level I did, you're not competing against the other guys, you're competing against yourself. And so I had that desire to improve myself, and that gave me the extra push to do this. And and I love my brothers and sisters out there that wear the uniform that I wore. my whole career, and I just wanted to help them, and that's what got me into it, and that's what started this path.
And so that's really they are the ones that motivated you to speak openly and share your.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me to, because of my resume, and they said, "Man, you're the younger cops will look at your resume as a police officer, and they'll respect it, and they'll listen to you." And so that's yeah, that's how it started. Because trust me, to this day, I've been doing this over 10 years. I don't want to do this, and I never wanted to do this. I wanted to be riding that fancy bike on the wall over there. I live on the beach and I wanted to be sitting on the beach and surfing, and but here I am, and I have a purpose, and I'm honored to do it.
Yeah, as I think about that story, so in doing some prep for this show, I'd seen the accolades and the achievements inside the agency, but then hearing your story of professional soccer player, of the triathlete successes you had, right? Clearly you're wired up for making things happen and for doing things at a very high level. And I think, as you just said, your resume would impress or speak to the younger folks. I really think it's that life resume, right? It's not just the agency stuff that you've done, but you tell that story and it just is such a powerful story. And you can see this thread of preparation, of hard work, of seeing something and fixing it. That's, to me, very powerful. And then when I looked at your Survive First, the information that you put online, it comes across like, wow, this is a significant enterprise, right? You have very clearly identified treatment things. You have the treatment assessment fund, strong hope, those sort of things. You have a board of directors, a board of advisors. You're putting on the gala. So this is not just a small operation, it seems, and you're really bringing a lot to bear.
Yeah, we have a pretty big operation. I don't have really a lot to do with it. I'm just the face, as I always say. My wife is the director of Survive First. She runs this program very well. Yeah, we're connected throughout the nation with. Obviously, we're in partnership with the state of Florida, the FBI National Academy, organizations like that. And we do a lot of work and we provide a lot of help. And yes, I did recognize the key components, because everybody thinks that cops don't get help because of a stigma. And that could be true. That is true at some level. But what I found over the years, why police officers, and I use the word cops a lot because I'm a cop. And we're talking fire, dispatch, corrections. They don't get the help because they can't afford it. And the co-pays are
Of
so
course.
expensive, and things of that nature. And then there's a confidentiality factor. So those were the things that we built around. And then we also built around wellness to include the home life. It's so important that your home life is together in order to go to work and be able to perform at an optimum level. And just wellness, taking care of yourself. I always tell everybody, as a spec ops guy, you cannot save somebody else unless you can save yourself. And so, in order to be the person to help people as a police officer or a first responder, in order to be a really good parent and a really good spouse, the important things in life, you have to be the best version of yourself. And so I like to push that narrative and, be a better version of yourself. And that starts with being happy and healthy, period.
Um,
If you're not happy and healthy, you're not going to be able to achieve those goals. And I've got a wonderful team behind me that helps push that narrative. And we've been very successful at what we do. And I'm glad to be part of this team. That's for sure.
That's wonderful. What are the core programs? If I'm an officer and struggling, am I able to reach out directly to you? How does that work? And can you kind of go into a little bit more detail about the programs themselves?
Yeah, yeah. So really our core program is our treatment assistance program. We basically, if a first responder and their family that's been directed by the first responder world, if they meet a certain criteria, obviously there's an application process. And if they meet that criteria, then we will scholarship them the money that they need up to a certain amount. We will scholarship that money so that they can receive treatment. And whether it's inpatient treatment, or it's therapy. Not every cop has to go to treatment. Not every cop's an alcoholic. Not every cop's suicidal or first responder. Some people just need to talk to a therapist, me being one of them. And so sometimes, we just help with that. And we also have people who call and say, "This is what I'm going through." I field a lot of those phone calls. A lot of cops will be like, "I need someone to talk to." My partner, Raul Rivas, he's another one that picks up those phone calls, and they'll just ask us questions, and we can kind of give them a little guidance. Hey, this is what we did. We don't know the way, but we have a way. And we will kind of say, hey, do you want to try this? Or if they ask, hey, I'm looking for a therapist. Well, where do you live? Well, I live in Kentucky. Okay, well, we know some therapists in Kentucky. We've been to every state in the United States. So we've got friends in every state from West Coast to East Coast. And so we're able to network in that capacity. And and then we also get a lot of clinicians that will call us and go, "Hey, I got a patient who needs inpatient treatment, but he can't afford his copay. Can you help him?" Absolutely, have him fill out the application. So that's really our core program. We have our strong program, which is more on the wellness side. So, like our strong program, we have a marathon team. We have 25 runners going to the Marine Corps Marathon in a few weeks, and they will run in honor of obviously the Marine Corps and in honor of first responders who have died by suicide. And it's a great camaraderie. It's fun. I mean, it's
Mhm.
really not fun running marathons. I've run like 40 of them, and
Yeah,
my
those
I
must
tell 'em,
be
"Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm good. I'm good." But, it's fun, and it brings people to the forefront of wellness and spreads that message, and those are really our 2 big programs on top of the fundraising events we do. We do some really cool events that have become very big, and, they're a lot of fun to the first responders and their families.
Yeah, that gala event looked like it was a lot of fun and a pretty big deal.
It's a very big deal. It sells out every year. It doesn't take very long to sell out, and it's amazing. The people come from all over the United States. We have all kinds of special guests. And I got to tell you this. So, the reason for that gala was one day we were involved with a public service announcement that won an Emmy Award. And it just brought my attention. My buddy said, "Hey, you want to go to Hollywood to the event?" And I was like, "Heck no, man. I ain't hanging out with them weirdos." And he kind of brought the award thing to me. And so I just kind of looked at it. And what I learned was, let's just say the Oscars. Most people have seen the Oscars, and you see these characters like Denzel Washington, Tom Cruise, these level of people, and they get to walk down with their beautiful wife, all dressed up to the nines, and they get to walk down this red carpet, and they're treated like kings. And what I realized was they're getting treated like kings and queens because they're pretending to be me on TV. Think
That's
about
a
it.
great aha.
Yeah.
Right? Every actor pretends to be a cop at some point, or a firefighter, or a nurse,
Mhm.
or a dispatcher, especially guys like Denzel Washington and Keanu Reeves and Tom Cruise. And so when I saw that, it actually put a bad taste in my mouth. And I said, when does the real guy when does the cop that makes 40 grand a year, when does he get to parade his wife down the red carpet? And so when I found this out, I went to my wife and I said, "I want a red carpet event for the police officers, the dispatchers, the firefighters that do this job for real, not on TV." And that's the core thing of that. And so everybody who comes walks down the red carpet, gets their picture taken, and for that night, they are treated like kings and queens.
That's a great story. Really, as you said it, it all made so much
Mhm.
sense. I certainly had that thought had never occurred to me. So thankfully, your friend was a bit insistent on you at least understanding what this red carpet event was, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually Chris Fields, and Chris Fields is known, he's one of our teammates. He was involved with me. He was the famous, we call the famous picture from the Oklahoma bombing, the firefighter with the little baby that passed away. That's Chris Fields. And he was involved with us in that. And so a lot of credit goes to Chris for bringing that to the forefront.
Well, and also the event, this is on an annual basis, the gala?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Every year.
Yeah, that you have to start planning for the next year right after you're done. So that's a heavy lift.
It is a lot of work. Yes.
And it's for the families too, and speaking of, this comes up quite a bit in conversations, and like you, we are facilitators, connectors to help people get the treatment or training that they need, and when we are speaking to folks, it's like, "Elizabeth, FMRT does so much for us as first responders. What about our families? What can we do to better assist them?" Can you speak a little bit more to the efforts that you all have in your nonprofit to help with those family members?
Yeah, so the family members I found out are the very most important component to being a first responder. I don't care what anybody says. I've had the best training that the United States government provides to guys like me. And none of that training had anything to do with what I had going on at home. And the biggest thing was is when I retired, as you saw the accolades that I have as a police officer, I tell this story. There's a trophy case in the lobby of my police department all about me. I was officer of the year. My gold medal was in there on display, things like that. And I only say it, that's not a big deal. I don't care about any of that stuff. That was a long time ago. But what I learned was the day I retired, when I walked out the door locked behind me. And I was not welcome back in the police department because I didn't have that fancy key card anymore. I wasn't an employee. And I'd given that place my blood, sweat, and tears for an entire career. You know how many birthday parties, I was on a SWAT team for my entire career, from year one to the last year. And I missed so many birthday parties and Christmases and New Year's and Easter, all the things. I missed my daughter's recitals, things like that. And then when I retired, the people that I pushed away for over 20 years, they were waiting in the driveway for me. And then a couple years after I retired, I had a stroke. And when I had a stroke, they were telling my family I wasn't going to live very much longer. And at no time were there police officers in my driveway or at my house helping me rehabilitate. There was my kids and my wife. And I had to learn that in a different capacity. And so I say all that to say this, that's the core thing at work. When your home life is good, it's easier to go to work and be a better employee and to be it's hard to go to work when you have problems at home, and it's hard to come home to a problem home when you have problems at work. The two are devastating. And I've learned that in the mental health world, a lot of cops and firefighters, really not the job. It's at home is when the bottom falls out. We're great when we're at work. We can do our job with no problem, but it's when we go home that the bottom falls out. And so fortunately for me, I have this incredibly strong wife, and she lived with this lunatic that I was for and still am. I mean, anybody who knows me will shake their head and laugh at that. And she developed a program, and it's such a great program and teaching program that it was the keynote presentation at the FBI National Academy's national conference last year. And now she goes around the country and she teaches this to first responders and their families, what to do when the first responder comes home, how to deal with them, and also how the first responder needs to learn how to go home and reintegrate. Like I always say, I had to learn how to transition from SWAT guy to daddy. Because when I came home, my kids didn't see camouflage. They didn't see guns and uniform. They saw dad. And, when I came home, I was still in that SWAT mode. That mindset, you have to stay in it to stay alive and to be an optimum performer. And so, you learn a lot about that, and you learn that how important the family component is. And so that's my favorite thing about this is rehabilitating families, making them better, stronger, happier, and healthier, because I master the art of messing my family up, and by the grace of God, they still love me, and they still show up to the Christmas dinner table every year because they want to. That's what I tell people what success is. Success isn't the gold medal on my wall. That gold medal doesn't do anything for me. It didn't do anything for me the day after I won it, but this does. This is like a whole lifetime of achievement. And I always say the success. It's not a financial thing. It's not material. I tell people when you sit down at the dinner table on Christmas Day and all your kids are there because they want to be there, that's success. That's what I believe.
Absolutely. And please share your wife's name and because I think the work that she's doing and educating is phenomenal, and we need to share that information as well because we would love to see her come kind of on the southeast and a little bit in the Carolinas and present to some of the family members of the agencies that we're a part of. So tell us her name.
Yeah, her name is Karen Monda, and she's the executive director of our program. She's the boss. She lets everybody know that I'm not the boss. I'm just the boss on paper, but
But we
she
should have
runs
had
this.
her on here too.
Yeah, it's very rare that you don't see the two of us together. I don't really leave the house without her or Raul. I pretty much require 24-hour care. So we're always at the hip, and I love that. She's my best friend, and so I get to spend every day with my best friend.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We'd love to have her on and speak more about the work that she's doing with the family members and spread that. So, Gary, do you have any thoughts, follow-up questions?
Well, I was going to go down that same line. So, Doug, if people are interested in learning more, would they find Karen through the Survive First website?
Yeah, her email and phone numbers on the same with mine and the rest of the team, but at www.survivefirst.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. You hit on something that we've heard in several of these podcasts, this idea of when an officer goes from work to home, there's really not a decompression phase that necessarily happens. And so the family is often seeing, the results of what that person has gone through that day or the cumulative effects of what they've gone through that week, that month, that year. So it sounds like Karen has put together a really interesting and helpful program to create sort of that decompression and helpful interaction between family and all.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, she has, and we both push that narrative, and, yeah, it's a very difficult thing to do is to go home and transition and for anybody, and I have to say this for all your listeners, a lot of people think that the veteran or the guy who's been to war. I have some combat veterans in my house, my sons, and the ones that go to war, the ones that the cops, the firefighters, the snipers, all that stuff, they go, wow, they say to me, I can't believe you've been through all that trauma. And, I could only imagine how bad that is. And I always tell everybody, I learned a very valuable lesson. I spent a lot of time in the hospital because of my injury. And when I was in the hospital, on the wall was a picture and it had 10 smiley faces. The first one was smiling, and the last one was a red, angry face. Most people have seen this picture. And the doctor comes in and goes, hey, what's your pain level at? And you're supposed to point what's an 8, to the angry face. Do you know the picture I'm talking about at the
Mhm.
doctor's?
Hmm.
I stared at that thing for 11 weeks in ICU. And one day it hit me. It didn't say underneath if you're a cop or if you're a teacher or if you're a firefighter. It just said on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 is a 10. So a 10 for the cop and a 10 for the librarian or the school teacher, like my wife used to be a school teacher. It's the same. A 10 is a 10. And so that is important that everybody knows that on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 is a 10. And trauma can look different to anybody. Somebody might be like me being in a shooting, but a 10 could be for my wife. Let her see a squirrel get hit by a car. And and the whole year is messed up. That's how traumatic that is to her. So, I use those examples that it's important for people to know that and understand that.
Yes,
I'm
thank you for
so yeah, I'm so impressed with the way you take things that seem like everyday things in some ways and distill out these lessons, whether it's what you've figured out around the red carpet, whether it's staring at that chart for 11 weeks or whatever, your ability to connect dots or reveal truths in these things, that's just uncanny to me, Doug. That's a gift.
for sure.
That's from I always joke and say that's from coming from Polk County. I wasn't the most educated guy, so I come from Polk County, Florida. So I had to figure out some alternative ways to figure it out.
Well, it seems like you have.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I like to
Well,
make jokes about it.
well, Doug, as we close, I want to circle back to hope and ask you, what gives you hope today, both in your personal journey and in the broader first responder community.
What brings me hope is I've seen it. I've seen hope. I live with somebody that preaches, there's always hope, and you got to have faith, and think you're in the deepest, darkest hole of your life many times in your life. And when you come out of that hole, you realize, man, it wasn't that bad. It could have been worse, especially when and so going through those things, I learned over time that there's hope. There's hope that it's going to get better. You've got to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You've got to look for it. You've got to believe that it's there. And you also got to believe in humanity. You have to believe in a higher power, for some people, whatever your religion is, all those things combined are the things that give you hope. And I was blinded by that at one point in my life, which, I'm being an Ironman triathlete, I'm not a quitter. I'm able to run 140 plus miles without quitting. And I lost that ability one day when I pulled that trigger. And so I learned through that yeah, there's hope that it will get better, and things will just be okay. It's okay.
That's so beautifully said. And just thank you for sharing your story. And for our listeners, I think they need to find you, and the way to find you to learn more is to visit survivefirst.us
.us.
or traumabehindthebadge.us. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm all over the place. You can find me all over, if not at for the National Academy and After Action. I help run a first responder program that I oversee in California
Okay.
for first responders only. And, it's like an inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, virtual therapy, things like that. You can find me all over the place, and
Well,
I'll
good.
come.
Well, we hope to find you. Maybe you can come speak at the next North Carolina chapter or one of the Section 3 chapters. I'll do a plug for the folks that I know
Yeah.
within those chapters. And of course, Tennessee, Kentucky, we were just there. So I know they would love to hear you present. And this conversation is a reminder that resilience is possible. You are resilient, and help is available, and no one needs to walk this road alone. So, Doug, thank you again for being here. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on Mind Matters. Stay safe and stay well.
Thank you, ma'am.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Mind Matters. Please give us your thoughts, and if you like this episode, feel free to share it with others. You can also find more content and choose to follow us on our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at the FMRT Group. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on Mind Matters.